compared to what it was in 2018. That's a beautiful cause, aging better. And also next to this, there's the Association for Longevity in Good Health, which also is an association, is an institution at the University Hospital of Montpellier. So we pay a tribute to their work, and Jean Lemaitre, who's also in charge of the association, will speak about it much better than I can do. It's a noble cause. We want to put in place a clock where, when we take some blood, we'll be able to know whether we have that aging gene. And unlike what we imagine, if our age of the civil age corresponds to the biological age, it's unfair in nature. There are some people who have 10 years less, and some who have 10 years more. Sometimes you can see it, and sometimes you don't see it. Now, once we have that aging gene, if we can consider that aging could be a disease that could be treated, that could be prevented, that's the challenge of these noble causes. So there's an excellent wine sales. You know where you're here. Thank you very much for coming here for this 163rd Hospices Civils de Beaune wine auction. I'll turn it over immediately to people who are even better knowledgeable than we are. Hello, everyone. Everyone, or nearly everyone, knows the Hospices de Beaune. Its reputation is national and also global. My own American cousins who live near Seattle know the Hospices de Beaune. After all, at any rate, people think they know it. Is it really the case? During my appointment several weeks ago, several friends told me, oh yeah, really? You are no longer managing the hospital? So I think it's very helpful to give you a reminder of what the Hospices Civils de Beaune are. Above all, it's public health institution made up of several entities spread over a territory to manage about 10,000 inhabitants, made up of the Hospital of Beaune, of course, but also of Sœur Nuit-Saint-Georges and Arnay-le-Duc. This whole center includes about 1,000 beds with geriatrics, acute disease requiring rehabilitation, which is significant given the characteristics of our territory. Many activities related to medicine and surgery are present, as well as an emergency, a SMUR as we call it, or a maternity with about 700 births per year. The Hospices Civils de Beaune and the 1,500 employees, I thank them by the way for their involvement, are a major player for managing our population, strengthened by our support of territorial centers around here. Due to its history and the heritage that results from it today, that the Hospices are known worldwide. As a matter of fact, since its foundation in 1443, with Guillaume de Salins, the Hospices de Beaune benefited from many donations and bequests and privileges in order to finance our activities. It did not start immediately with the vine, but by rights on the salt income. Yes, in the Middle Ages, it was salt that was giving more income, was safer for the year's income. Fortunately, visionary people very quickly donated vines, more for the consumption of patients, by the way. This tradition continued despite the ups and downs of history, in particular when the Hospices de Beaune lost a lot of their resources, of their sources of income during the Revolution. So they even thought about selling in the 19th century their vines. Currently, the domain represents 60 hectares. Let's not forget, by the way, that since the merger with the Hospital Nuit Saint-Georges in 2016, well, the estate of the Hospice de Nuit of 12 hectares is part of the Hospices Civils de Beaune. Lastly, the Hospices de Beaune, it's also a very property estate with the Hôtel Dieu, which is paying the most visited tourist area in Franche-Comté with more than 400,000 visitors per annum. Now, nearly after 600 years or so, the hospices have to continue to reinvent themselves while keeping their exceptional identity. We are at a key point where the landscape of health is changing and in which we need to strengthen our position in the face of the many challenges that you know, the crisis of attractiveness of the health roles or the modernization of equipment and infrastructures. Therefore, we have many projects to finance in order to improve improve the management and the working conditions. First of all, the construction of a building of nearly 16,000 square meters to replace the first building of the modern era of the Hospice, which opened in 1971 and which is no longer fit for purpose. It will welcoming medicine, geriatrics, surgery, and out-of-patients and maternity, pediatrics, intensive care, cardiac rehabilitation, one of the last departments that opened, and hospitalization at home, pharmacy, and other logistics. All of this, of course, with an approach which is, as we call it, HQ. It is a project of over 95 million euros. This rebuilding also the Sur Hospital, which is called a proximity hospital for an amount of about 25 million euros in order to enforce its role in its own territory. There's also a topic which is dear to my heart, which is the renovation, rehabilitation of the property assets to create accommodation with preferential rents in order to be attractive in an area which is quite expensive. There's also the rehabilitation of the elderly homes, and so moderning the winery, and also trying to have management across the territory. And lastly, the project of Grand Hôtel Dieu in order to protect the monument and reinvent museums and the welcome of visitors. As you can see here, the projects that are significant are numerous, so more than ever we need the generosity of our benefactors so that the Hospice de Beaune can be part for a long time in its own territory, ensure our missions of public health by improving the management, the care of our patients, the way we welcome them, and the working conditions. Thank you very much. I don't know if you have any questions at this stage, or was I extremely clear and comprehensive, perhaps? Please don't be shy. Speak up. It's the beginning which is tough, as always. At any rate, don't hesitate. If you have any questions afterwards, I'll be just nearby. I'll turn it over to Marianne Ginou now, who's CEO of Hospices.
Bonjour à tous.
Hello, everyone.
C'est un grand honneur.
It's a great honor and it's with great pleasure to be again here in the Isle de Beaune. This is our third year of sales for Hospices next to the Hospice de Beaune. And so we are endeavoring with a lot of pride and passion to contribute to the renewed success of this exceptional sales, which is internationally and nationally a priority for us. The bar is very high in 2022 with the record that we achieved, which was a testimonial of the excellent quality of the wines produced by Ludine Divot and her team, and by the global demand for high quality, very high quality Burgundy wine. It is with these Burgundy wines that Hospices sales have made the biggest progress. So the context of global wine context is bullish. In 2022, it hit a total record of 150 million dollars actually, which exceeded the previous dollar of 2021 by more than 20%. This record positioned us as a global leader in terms of specialties, in terms of wines. This success comes after all the efforts that the wine department, founded 50 years ago, is doing regularly each year and gives us a role as a must. For the 163rd Hospice de Beaune auction is a last straight line for all of us, all the Sotheby's teams, after months and months of preparation next to the teams of the Hospice de Beaune. So you can see in the streets and in the salle, we rolled out during the weekend all our teams, our operations in this Grande Halle des Beaunes. It has been a long and preparation with the organization take place over several months, and in terms of promoting this, and we had tastings done in different continents, in the Americas, in Asia, and in Europe. We were in Mexico City LA, and going through Taipei and Hong Kong, just to mention a few of the destinations of our global tastings of the Hospices de Beaune, to help people discover and love these wines. And as Guillaume de Courtier said before, they are extremely well known, but there's still many things that we can learn and share so that the expertise, the know-how, and the excellence of Burgundy is well known. So we shared this in Asia, by the way, where we all have been present for 50 years also, and we're developing even more our activities there with new establishments in Shanghai and Seoul, and also next year in Hong Kong. But even closer to us, we are continuing our events in London, in Milano, and of course in France. Our aim is always to strengthen and reinforce the beaming of Beaune and its wines, make sure people know all its uniqueness, make sure we work with all the players in the market in Burgundy and all the ecosystem here. In this mission, we were supported by Casper Morris, our consultant. In this respect, I'd like to share a change which involves us directly, but also is really something very enthusiastic for us. This 163rd wine auction will be marking the end of a cycle, because Mr. Morris will be leaving his role as a consultant for us. Jasper has been working with us since 2021, and with the Hospices de Beaune next to Ludivine Crino since 2016. So we thank you all very much from the bottom of heart for the huge talent, the generosity, the passion with which you have shared really your enthusiasm for all the information that we needed on the vintages. So really, we are very much grateful to you. So great many thanks from all of us, Jasper. So now we'll have to find a replacement, but very quickly, thanks to you and thanks to the discussions we had with the team, we'll be able to unveil the one that will be following him, and we're highly honored to be able to announce that Jenny Shirley, Master of Wine, will be following in his footsteps. Thank you very much, Jasper, and thank you very much, Jenny, for joining us. Now, Jenny, I think you probably know her by way of reputation. In 2008, you became the first person in Asia in obtaining the title of Master of Wine, this title which is the highest distinction in terms of in wine. She holds a master from Harvard and a PhD in marketing. Jenny published 3 Brueggel's Mastering Wines and the Hagen Burgundy that won in 2020 the Prix Gourmand of the best book for French wines, and she was appointed Chevalier de la Légion d'honneur by Mr. Macron in 2021. So she will be taking over the role of consultant for the sales of Hospices with us, and with Ludivine Divot and her team. So thank you very much for this new cooperation. Talking about the men and women of this very human adventure, let me talk about the players. This afternoon you'll be finding on the gavel 3 auctioneers that you know, Aurélie Van der Voort, who will be opening the sale. She had sold the Pièce du Président last year, Aurélie Massot. 2 Aurélies this year who hold the Pièce du Président in the first year, and Jeanne Camon, who was also present last year, and he will be in charge of Pièce du Président, very feminine edition this year. So our auctioneers and all our teams are up and running for this afternoon. Make sure it's a success for the sale of the Hospices de Beaune, which honors us and obliges us. Thank you very much. Hello everyone, I am David Duverne, chairman of the supervisory board of la Fondation pour la Recherche Médicale. That foundation is not as old as the Hospices de Beaune. However, it goes back to 1947. This is when, after the Second World War, the 3 major professors, Jean Bernard, who was working on leukemias and the link between leukemia and cancer, Jean Gurgé, who at the time came up with the first kidney grafts, is known also for being the father of Michel Berger, and Jean Dossier, Nobel Prize winner for medicine, who worked a lot on compatibility for organ grafts. Now, the foundation was created by these three major professors because following the Second World War, it was said that the state could not on its own finance research into medicine, and it was important to create an association which became then a foundation based on the generosity of its donors. And today, the Foundation for Medical Research is lucky to have donors who give about 60 million euros each year. There are about 300,000 donors, and it finances research into all diseases and finances in particular many young researchers to make sure that students go towards research by financing them for their PhD, so they can start research work in laboratories before being hired by the laboratories or university hospitals in CERN or the Pasteur Institute, the Curie Institute, or the Brain Institute, etc. So, we support 400 research projects per year on every disease. And all researchers are very eager and very, because it is fundamental research that is at the basis. It is from there that we can have applied research that will produce new medicines and new. And so the link with aging well is since 2019 we chose, in addition to that generalist mission, to support research in 4 different fields which seem to be very important to us. The first of these fields is the one that leads us here. It's the one of neurodegenerative diseases. Why is that the case? Well, because these diseases involve 1 million people in France per year, because in general we have not found any definitive therapy for these diseases, because private laboratories, among many of them, stopped research into these diseases because it took up too much time. So public research is absolutely of the essence. So we chose an approach which is a bit different, which is a multidisciplinary approach. Now, we wanted that with these diseases, want to bring along not only neurologists, but other researchers from other disciplines to find new ways. So we have been organizing since 2019 3 calls for requests, one of them in 2023, for which we allocated 5 million euros and retained 9 research projects. We have 1 project pertaining in addition. So if the charity pièce give us a lot of money this year, we'll be able to finance perhaps a 10th project. Let me give you a few indications now around these projects. Before of this, let me mention very quickly our 3 main prongs. Our 3 are the major axes. Now the second one is health and environment. Look, with climatic change, with the increase in the population, with the development transformed and processed food, and issues of health environment. Issues are more and more complex. We see more and more that the environment affects our health and in an adverse way. And the third axis is repairing a sort of medicine like related to bones and organs, because this is a field where research requires more cooperation between the public and the industrial world. And the fourth prong is about the new infectious diseases, one example of them being the COVID-19. To come back now to our request for services in 2023, our call for tenders, let me share a few examples here of the researchers that we chose to support. The first one is Maria Cecilia Angulo Jaramillo, in charge of research at the Neuroscience Psychiatric Institute in Paris, to explore the impact of physical activity as a therapy in regard to neurodegenerative diseases. The second one is by André Kajava, who is in charge of cellular biology research in Montreal works on the role of certain viruses such as the herpes, on the development of neurodegenerative diseases. Now, the third project, and I'll stop at that point, the project about with the person in charge of the Pasteur Institute, which is conducting research on toxic molecules in charge of the death of neurons regarding Parkinson, and so, etc. So we count a lot on the pièce de charité this afternoon in order to expand our efforts regarding these neurodegenerative diseases, which again hit 1 million people directly, not to mention the whole population of the people who provide care, who often are very much impacted by these diseases. And thank you very much for listening.
Bonjour à tous.
Hello, everyone.
Alors, nous sommes bien sûr avec l'association.
Look, we are together, very proud with the association, very proud of this selection of this distinction. We're a young association.
C'est une association de recherche.
We are an association into research. We will be dedicated to research, but research into aging well. It's a research initiative for good health aging. With this other foundation, we are complementary in a way. The first foundation aims at attempting to finance a whole host of projects on many different diseases, even though this year we are focusing more on neurodegenerative diseases, and our aim is to focus on aging per se and not be interested so much in diseases. Why is that the case? Look, when you assess research among all the laboratories who are interested in aging around the globe, we notice that all these diseases about aging have something in common. There has been a lot of progress made in fundamental research, and they have identified these common denominators. We know today that these denominators are related to the aging of our cells. And if we treat the aging of our cells, we see that, and this whole set of scientific evidence, we can delay or even remove a whole set of pathologies related to aging. So this is our vision. Focus, target aging as if it were a disease, make the necessary developments in order to treat it the same way we treat a disease. In other words, first of all, make a diagnosis, assess the aging, and the mayor of Beaune was saying that we are not equal in the face of aging, and so a number of people age more than others, so we need to assess this. Sometimes we're not sick, but we become fragile. So there's a whole set of molecule markers that we can draw from the blood, which mirror literally the aging of our organs, our tissues, and would help us to alert maybe an aging that is speeding up a little bit and which doesn't correspond to our chronological aging. So the money that will be obtained for this charity, say for that, this generous one for the two associations, well, in our case, we wish to develop an aging clock with some blood sample in order to be able to identify the markers that help to say in a reliable way what is the real age we have, and if it should be an alert. So next to this specific goal, this association was created to support such research, but also initiate the implementation in Montpellier of a longevity in Good Health Institute. We believe in it. And in that institution, which also be multidisciplinary, there will be cutting-edge research into aging cells, but also teams that will be working on food, physical exercising. As you know, today, we have scientific evidence that shows that there's a great benefit regarding the aging of cells and about the fact that we could live longer and good health. So typically,
je remercie par avance,
I'd like to thank in advance
les donateurs
all the donors and especially the Hospices de Beaune for having supported our association, which once again is very recent, and it's an awesome encouragement in order to continue in this field and attempt to reinforce and shore up research into aging in good health. Thank you very much for your attention.
Bonjour tout le monde.
Hello
Je suis ravie
everyone.
de vous
I'm
retrouver,
delighted
moi
to be
aussi,
back
ce
with
matin
you
pour,
this morning
vous parler peut-être
to
pour
speak
la
perhaps
énième fois
for
pour
once
certains
again
de ce fabuleux
about
millésime
this
2023.
fabulous 2023
Je commencerai
vintage.
par dire
Let
qu'il
me start
il
by
va
saying
achever un
that
certain
it will
cycle au
complete a
domaine des
certain
Hospices de Beaune, qui
cycle
est celui de
at
la
the domain
conversion
which is
bio.
the organic
Monsieur Duverne a très
conversion.
justement
Mr. Duverne
mentionné
quite rightly
l'environnement et
mentioned
la santé,
the environment
qui a
and
mis au
health
point
that are at the
le régisseur
heart
que je suis aussi,
of
quoi de plus
me,
logique
the
pour
wine
le
manager.
domaine
It
des
makes
Hospices de
sense for
Beaune
the
que
domain
de
des
prendre
Hospices de
soin
Beaune to
des
care
personnes qui vont boire
for
nos
the
vins,
people who will
de
be
nos acteurs
drinking our
au premier
wine,
plan aux
of
vignes, et
our
bien sûr de
wine
notre
growers, and
environnement.
also our environment.
Cette conversion,
So
elle,
this
elle prend,
organic
elle prendra
conversion
toute en
will
2024.
make
J'espère
sense
que
mainly in
notre
2024.
audit,
Hopefully,
prévu pour
our audit,
décembre,
which is scheduled for
sera
December,
couronné de succès.
will be
J'ai
successful.
aussi envie de vous
I
dire que
also
si
want to tell you that
2023
if 2023
était un millésime un peu
turned out
test
to be
pour
a
vérifier
testing
que nous
vintage to
étions
make
prêts,
sure that we were
je crois que
ready.
nous le sommes.
Look, I think we really
Le
are ready.
mildiou et
The
l'oïdium se
mildew
sont
and
donné le relais toute la
really
saison avec
all
une météo
were there
parfois clémente,
with
parfois un peu plus
sometimes a
capricieuse,
mild
avec
and
une
some not so
situation
mild weather
parfois
condition,
complexe au
and
niveau
we
des prises
had
de décision, mais
a tough time sometimes
je
making
crois que
certain
c'est aussi dans
decisions. However,
l'adversité que l'on
it
arrive
is
à
in
progresser.
adversity that you can
Et
make
c'est l'occasion
progress,
aussi
and
pour
this
moi
is an
de remercier
opportunity
mes
for me
équipes
to
aux
express my
vignes,
thanks to
les 23
my
vignerons
wine
qui
growers, the
travaillent à mes
23
côtés,
wine growers that
qui sont
work
bien
next to
évidemment
me,
dans
who
l'ombre,
of
mais
course
qui
are in the
aujourd'hui
shadows
méritent
but deserve
l'embellie de la
today
lumière
the
qui sera portée
light
sur le domaine,
that
sur
will be shed
cette thématique
on
très
this
importante pour nous,
significant
pour
topic
eux,
for us
et
and
puis
for
aussi
them this
pour les
afternoon
personnes qui
and
vont
for
boire
the
nos vins.
people who will be drinking our wines.
Je dois remercier aussi
I'd like to
également
thank
mes
as
équipes à la
well
cuverie,
my teams in the
sans qui,
winery,
les vins que vous avez pu déguster
the wines
ces
that you were
derniers
able
jours,
to
ces dernières
taste in the
semaines,
last few
n'auraient
weeks
pas
and
pu
days
être faits.
could not have
Parce
been
que toutes ces petites
part
mains,
of
tous
this tasting
ces
because all these
grands palais, tous ces
palates and
muscles mis
hands,
en
these
activité, en
muscles that
action
were
pour faire
exerting
des pigeages,
energy
remontages,
to
charger les caisses, les camions.
make sure
Je crois
we
qu'il est
do
temps aussi
uploading
de
and
rendre
so on.
hommage à
It's
ces
time
personnes
to
et
pay
j'ai
a
une
tribute
petite
to these
pensée
people and have
particulière.
a
En fait, elle
special
est grande,
thought
ma pensée
to
particulière pour Sébastien Lecomte,
for Sébastien
mon
Lecomte,
adjoint,
my
qui est
assistant,
à
my
pied d'œuvre ce
deputy,
matin
who
pour
is
faire
working this
goûter
morning
encore et
to
encore
make sure
nos
that
jolis
people
vins
taste
2023.
again and again our beautiful
Ils sont jolis, ces
2023
vins.
wines. They are so beautiful, these
Je peux
wines.
vous l'affirmer.
I can
Je crois
assert
que bon
this.
nombre d'entre vous les
Many
ont
of you
dégustés.
tasted it.
Je crois aussi pouvoir
Look, I
dire que
can
tout
say
n'était pas
also
gagné.
that it was not
Si
an
très
easy
tôt,
piece
ce
of
millésime
cake.
s'est avéré
So
extrêmement
this
généreux
vintage
dans les
turned
deux
out to be
couleurs,
very
aussi bien en
bountiful
chardonnay qu'en pinot
in
noir.
Chardonnay and in Pinot Noir,
Très
in
tôt
both
aussi,
colors,
nous avons
very
quand même
early
pressenti
also.
qu'il allait
We
falloir
felt that we would
œuvrer
have
pour
to
essayer
work
de
hard
limiter
to
les
try to
ardeurs de nos
limit as
vignes
much
si
possible
vaillantes. Et d'ailleurs,
the
presque
energy of our
anormalement
vines.
vaillantes dans
They
un
had even
contexte climatique
too
très
much
chamboulé
energy
avec
in
les
the ups
bouleversements
and downs of
climatiques que
the
l'on connaît.
weather that
Comment la
we've
vigne
known.
fait-elle?
So how
Comment a-t-elle
can
fait
the
pour
wine
une
be
année
so good
encore
so
nous
one
donner
year again give
ces
us
raisins,
these
cette
great
quantité de
grades,
récolte
the
qui a été
quantity
celle de
of harvest
2023?
that
Je n'ai
was
pas la réponse.
the one we had this year? I have
J'aurais
no
adoré,
answer
mais je
for
ne l'ai pas.
this.
En
Look,
revanche,
on the other hand,
ce que nous avons mis en œuvre
what
pour
we
essayer d'en
implemented
tirer
to
le
try
meilleur, c'est
to
bien évidemment une régulation
get
de
the best
charge,
of it is to
une régulation
regulate
des
the
rendements.
loads, the
Parce que si je
yields,
peux oser
because
dire,
if I can
mais c'est plus
say,
un secret pour
but it's
personne, que
not
le
a secret for
chardonnay
everyone that
supporte
the
de par sa
Chardonnay
génétique, de par
supports you
la
its
variété
genetics
chardonnay,
and the
un
Chardonnay
petit peu mieux, des
variety,
rendements
a bit
plus
better,
généreux,
more
à
bountiful
notre
yields.
sens, à nous, de ce que nous croyons aux Hospices de
So
Beaune en tout cas.
what we
Le
believe
pinot
here,
noir mérite
the
d'être
Pinot
un
Noir
peu plus
deserves
poussé
to
dans
be
ses
a
retranchements.
little bit, it
Et
should
il a
be
fallu donc
promoted
œuvrer,
more.
malgré
So we had
beaucoup
to work
d'efforts,
very hard
malgré
despite many efforts.
des ébourgeonnages, des
And
dédoublages,
all
des
the
vendanges en verre.
splitting, all
Eh
the
bien, la récolte est encore
disbutting,
très
the
généreuse
harvest
sur les
is
vignes.
again very bountiful
Donc,
with
au
regard
moment
to the
des
vines.
vendanges que nous avons
During the
commencé
harvest,
le 11 septembre pour
which
les
we
rouges,
started on the 11th of
pour les
September
chardonnays,
for
et
the
au
reds
moment
and
des
on the
vendanges,
8th for the
nous avons
Chardonnay.
avons décidé de
During
trier
a harvest, we
de façon
decided
assez
to
drastique,
sort
c'était
out
audacieux parce que c'est
drastically.
tentant de garder tout
It's
ce qui était sur
attempting
les
to
pieds.
keep everything that
Mais à
was
bien
on
y
the vines,
regarder, tout ce
but
qui était
looking
sur les
closely,
pieds,
everything that was on the
à notre
vines,
sens,
in
dans
our
notre
view,
position,
in
avec
our
le rôle
position,
que jouent nos
with the
vins
role
au jour
played by
d'aujourd'hui, pour
wine
cette vente de
today for
charité.
this charity sale,
Les décisions
the
de ne garder que
decisions
les
about
meilleurs
keeping
raisins
only the best
sont apparues
grapes
comme une
appeared
évidence.
as
Tous
making
les raisins
sense.
n'étaient pas
All the grapes
propices
were
à
not
produire
ready
les
to
vins que nous
produce the
avons
wines
à vous présenter
that we
aujourd'hui.
will be
Nous
presenting
l'assumons
today.
complètement.
We
C'est
take
une
full
décision difficile
responsibility
à
for
prendre.
this.
C'est
It's a
compliqué de dire à ces
tough
équipes
decision
d'enlever
to
des
take.
raisins.
It's difficult
C'est compliqué de
to
dire aux
tell your
vendangeurs
teams,
de laisser des
take
grappes
away,
par terre. C'est compliqué
strip
de dire
away
aux
some
dames sur les
grapes.
tables de
It's
tri,
difficult to
si
tell
je vous assure,
women who
jetez-les.
are sorting out,
Je
please
n'en ferai rien.
throw
Je
out
n'en ferai pas quelque
these
chose du
grapes,
niveau de
these
ce que je
other
dois
bunches,
faire.
and so on.
Alors sur les
So,
nombreuses grappes que
with
contenaient encore nos
with the
pieds de vigne, malgré
with the
tous nos
many
efforts, oui, nous avons fait
bunches,
le choix
yes,
de n'en
we made the
garder
choice of
que les
keeping
meilleurs,
only the
puisque ce
best
qui est arrivé dans
grapes
nos cuves
because
était des
what
raisins
came
d'exception.
into our wineries were
Les
exceptional
chardonnays, comme je
wines.
vous l'ai
The
mentionné
Chardonnay, as I
précédemment,
mentioned
étaient plus,
previously,
je vais oser dire
were
facile, mais j'ai pas tellement envie qu'on donne de
easier,
la
but
facilité à
it's
notre métier
not.
parce que
I don't like
ça
to
veut
use
dire
the
que vous
word
ne passez
easy.
pas
It
nos
means
nuits.
that you don't
Mais plus
spend your
facile quand
nights.
même, parce
But it was
que
easier though with the
leur mise en
Chardonnay
œuvre a
because
été
their
plus
execution
douce, les
was
pressurages se sont extrêmement
milder,
bien passés, les
pressure
rendages
was
étaient
good,
très
the
beaux, les
yields
états
were
sanitaires
beautiful,
étaient
the
magnifiques
health
également.
conditions was
Donc nous
great.
avons aujourd'hui des vins
So
blancs
today we have
d'une grande
whites
pureté, avec
who are
beaucoup
very
de fruits,
pure with lots of
avec une
fruits,
maturité et un
with
équilibre. Alors on va
maturity and
certainement
balance that
poser
is
la
great.
question
So
sur les
probably you'll be
acidités, donc
asking
je vais laisser
questions
planer un peu
about
le suspense,
acidity.
mais
So
oui, nos vins
yes,
blancs sont
our
équilibrés
whites
malgré
are
de très belles
balanced
maturités.
despite beautiful
Les
ripeness.
pinots noirs,
The Pinot Noir,
après tri,
after sorting them out
ces
and
choix difficiles dont je
after
viens
the
de
difficult
vous
choices that
parler,
I just
offre un
mentioned,
toucher de tanin qui pour moi représente
have
vraiment
tannins that
l'empreinte du millésime.
represent the imprint
Si nous
of the
devions
vintage.
définir
If we were to
un
define
socle à la
a
pyramide de nos
basis to the
appellations,
pyramid of
sur
our
ce millésime
appellation with
2023,
the
ce seraient les
2023
tanins que je
vintage,
mentionnerais.
it would be the
Avec des
tannins
fruits,
I would
des
mention
fruits
with
purs,
fruits
hein.
that are
Tout le monde
pure.
nous a parlé, tout le monde
Everyone
a souligné, et je peux vous dire que c'est un
underlined
très beau
that, and it's a
compliment.
beautiful
Tout le monde a
compliment.
souligné
Everyone
l'élégance
underlined
et
the
la
elegance
netteté,
and
la
the
pureté des
clearness
fruits
and
de
the
nos vins
purity
rouges,
of the fruits
ainsi que
of our
leur
reds, as
fort
well as
enracinement
their
dans leurs
strong
appellations.
rooting in
Il n'y a
their
pas plus beau
appellation.
compliment à
This
faire à
is
un
the best
vinificateur
compliment you
que
can
de lui
make
dire
to a
que ses Volnay
winemaker,
goûtent
to tell them
différemment
the
de ses
Volnay
pomards,
tastes
de
different
ses
from the
Cortons
Pommard, from the
et puis de
Corton,
ses Savigny,
and
et
from
j'en
the
oublie
Savigny,
certainement.
not to mention many others.
Alors c'est
So,
le cœur encore plus
it's with my heart
motivé
that is
de
even
cette
more
belle pièce des présidents est
filled
sortie,
with drive that the
elle
beautiful
aussi de
pièce
la
des
lumière
présidents
avec,
came
avec
out
un
into
Asie
light
Chambertin dans
with
un
an
écrin
Aziz
incroyable
Chambertin,
pour une
absolutely
cause qui
wonderful
tient
for a cause
particulièrement
which
à
is
cœur,
very dear to my
le bien
heart,
vieillir,
which is
déjà parce que je vais
aging
gagner
well,
le temps de tout le
because
monde.
I'm aging
Et
myself.
parce qu'en fait,
And because
ces axes de recherche sont
these
aussi
research
totalement liés à
axes are
celle de la
totally
vigne. Le
related
parallèle
to
est
the
tellement
vine.
facile
The
finalement.
parallel is so easy to
Toutes
draw
les
after all.
décisions qui nous
All the
animent au jour
decisions
d'aujourd'hui,
that
indépendamment
animate
de
us
celles qui sont
today
faites millésime après
independently
millésime,
which of those
toutes
that are
ces
made
décisions n'ont
vintage
qu'un
after
objectif,
vintage, their
c'est
sole
celui
aim
d'assumer la
is to
pérennité
make
de la
sure
vigne.
there's a
Elle aussi, elle
long-lasting
doit bien vieillir.
vine. It must age
Et
as well,
pour nous aussi,
the
la tâche
wine.
est ardue,
And the
parce
task
que les
is tough for us
modifications
because the
climatiques, les
climatic
bouleversements
changes,
climatiques, parlons de réchauffement, mais pas
the
que,
upsets,
nous
the
montrent que nous
upheavals
allons
show
devoir
us
à faire de
that
cette
we'll have
thématique un enjeu majeur.
to make sure this
J'ai
theme,
très bon
this climatic
espoir pour
theme
avoir
becomes
déjà
a major
beaucoup
challenge.
discuté avec ma
I've discussed
direction
at length
et
with
monsieur le
my
maire, président du
management
conseil
and
de
with
surveillance que
our
c'est
mayor
l'enjeu
that
et les
this
enjeux de demain
challenge
par
and
rapport
tomorrow's challenge
à l'ancrage des
compared
domaines des
to
hospices de
routing
Beaune
of the domain des
au sein de
hospices de
beaucoup
Beaune
de projets pilotes
within many
pourront
pilot
être,
projects.
voilà,
Hopefully
menés de
this
front
can
pour
be taken
essayer
forward
humblement
so
de
that to
comprendre
try
et
humbly
d'aider
try to
la vigne
understand
aussi
and
à
hope the
bien
vine
vieillir.
to age well as well.
Je sais très bien que
I
la
know
notion, le
quite
fait de
well
mettre
that the fact of
753
putting
pièces à la vente dans un
753
millésime
pièces or barrels
supposé
up
au
for
moins
scale
aussi
with
généreux que
a vintage that
2022
is supposed to be
mérite
as
quelques...
bountiful as the
J'ai
one
envie
of
de dire explication
2022
parce que je crois que
deserves
je
some
viens de
explanation
justifier, mais
because
j'ai
I've
pas
just
tellement envie de
justified, but I don't
Nous
want to
allons
justify
justifier
myself or
parce
justify
que nous sommes
ourselves
tellement convaincus que
because
c'était
we
les
are so
bonnes
convinced
décisions.
that
Nous
we
sommes
made the
tellement
right decisions.
convaincus
We are so
que
convinced
c'était pour
that
les vins
it
qu'on nous
was
demande de faire,
for the wines that we're
par
asked to make, out of respect for all the buyers who this afternoon will be putting up a lot of money into our wines. We're intimately convinced that it was necessary to keep only the most beautiful grapes. And if there were only a few grapes on the vines, well then, yes, we obtained 753 pièces, but they are there, the wines are there where they should be. It's up to the buyers to be here with us. After Ludivine, there's not much I could add, really. Thank you so much for having come. And we are so glad you're here. Welcome, Jenny. So, the president of the interprofession, I am that president. I'm so happy to hear the words uttered by Ludivine, so I could stick them to the most beautiful harvest that we've just obtained. This harvest didn't exceed the 2 million hectoliters. It's very close to it with 30,000 hectares in production. We plant vines every year, and we produce a little bit more wine each year. So the season turned out to be very complex, so much so that our major fear was to have a climatic accident. The hailstorm hit strongly Meursault and the Mâcon vineyard, with fewer wines in the Mâconnais this year compared to last year. The harvest forecasts are always very difficult to make, and this figure, which is a significant one, has a knock-on effect on the prices, but Laurent will talk about this in a while. I'd like to thank all the wine growers and producers in Burgundy who can make sure that terroir becomes so amazing. So under the very adverse climate conditions that we experience, look, there has never been any Saturday or Sunday Burgundy today. Look, let me make a parallel here. There are nearly 80% of estates are involved, are committed towards HVE, organic cultivation, and we are very happy about this. And this year, in June, our interprofession was very proud to open the Cité des Climats et des Vins, a project that was driven in Chablis and Mâcon and in Beaune, thanks to Alain and his team. And they produced this beautiful building that you all visited. For those who haven't done so, I advise you to check it out. Our basic idea is that the average visitor, they are aware that you have whites and reds. We need to explain to our visitors what the wine is about. From the sea to the bottle and moving towards tasting, thanks to something very scenographic staging that won a major award in New York. The visitor will be able to know where to go when they leave this city. We want to make sure that they go and test and check our Burgundy, not only wines, but also our gastronomy. Thank you.
Bonjour à tous.
Hello, everyone.
Alors, en ce qui me concerne, je vais vous parler un petit peu d'économie.
I will speak about economics here. The markets, first of all, the upstream market, the primary market, the market that takes place within Burgundy, and after that I'll talk about the downstream market, which is about our shipments. As you know, we are coming out of a series of vintages that was a bit difficult, like 2016, 2019, which were very small vintages. Then the very small one in 2021, which led to a very tense campaign, with the very little wine to sell between the wine growers and the merchants. Then we went through the 2022-23 vintage. The vintage 2023 turned out to be very dynamic. After the deficit of 2021, we had to replenish our stocks. This is what happened, really. This campaign came to a completion, and it came with releases from estates increased by 24%, and transactions, sales between the wine growers and the merchants increased by 59%. All of this in comparison with the 2021 vintage, which was so tiny. It's not surprising that we find such significant figures. Actually, what you should take away from this is at the end of the campaign in 2020, 2022, 2023, we were able to replenish partially our stocks. Stocks moved up in Burgundy from 11 months on average to 14 months. This replenishment was partial. It involves the wine growers. They were able to keep more bottles in their estates, and the merchants with the négociants, which before the 2023, they also had more significant stocks. As you know, in Burgundy, we need inventories, stocks. For our business, we need this, whether among wine growers or merchants, because we have products which are about long cycles and worked out. They are made, they are aged, put into bottles, put onto the market of wines with maturity. It requires stocks, inventories, and we need these inventories. We're able to partially replenish them, not enough yet, I would say. So, the good news with the advent of the 2023 vintage is quite encouraging. It will help us again replenish our stocks. We should be able to be in a position to be under normal conditions again. For this reason, the beginning of the campaign seems to be quite peaceful. They are a bit peaceful compared to what it was last year. It's not hectic like it used to be. Our volumes are there so that we can work again. So a few words now about our shipments regarding the market. In the meantime, of course, the situation becomes tense for two reasons in the markets. First of all, our shortage of availability. We cannot sell what we don't have. We market still very much the 2021 vintage, even though the 2022 is starting with the low entry point, so that we had fewer volumes to market. And secondly, also, of course, this macroeconomic situation is unique. You all know it, whether in national markets, in the domestic market, as well in regard to exports. Taking maybe large retailers, mass merchandise, in the first 8 months of the year, Burgundy wines followed the trend of all the fast consumer products, like in the retail business, minus 3% or so. Wines with large retailers, about minus 5%. The AOC wines, which are a bit more expensive, minus 7%, and Burgundy wines, minus 12%. I'm speaking about volumes, minus 12. Why? Because these are those that are positioned at a higher rung, and they had made the biggest progress in the last 10 years in the French, among the rent retailers, minus 4.7% in regard to volumes. Even the Crémant in Burgundy came up with minus 5.7 in volumes, but in terms of price, they moved up a little bit. Talking about exports now, in the first 7 months, we are at minus 5.9% in volumes for the same reasons, and a rise of 4.8% in volume. We are still in some kind of inertia due to the phenomenon that we have experienced in the last 20 years or so in Burgundy, and which was the upsurge of prices and of our brands. Maybe focusing now quickly on a few of the main exporting markets, our top 5 ones: United States, the UK, Japan, which is ahead of Canada then, and Belgium. Let me talk about 2 or 3 markets. In the United States, minus 3.5 in volume and plus 4.9 in value. The UK, and this is quite a surprise, which is quite interesting. It involves not only the Burgundy wines, but I was speaking yesterday with some friends in the Vallée du Rhône who see the same phenomenon. The UK only minus 1.3% in volume and plus 14% in volume. Quite a surprise for us, because everyone was saying that with the Brexit, that market would collapse literally. Now we're seeing that we're continuing to progress in the United Kingdom. We see some kind of people moving in the higher makes and brands, and this is fine for us. Canada, perhaps a few words about it, minus 22.7% in volume and minus 19 in value. This figure should be seen relatively. There are some major logistical issues there. After the COVID, the logistics, the cargo had become very tense globally, which led, by the way, a large part of inflation. And Canadians, who often have monopolies, Quebec and Ontario, for example, had major stocks. They felt, hey, cargo prices are increasing, and it takes now 3 to 4 months instead of 3 or 4 weeks for shipment. So logistics in Canada is normal. So have these stocks. They have to get rid of their stocks before importing again. So the situation is maybe a one-off one. A few words now, and you all have the dossier on the Australian market, which is now our 11th market with regard to Burgundy wines, and is progressing year after year. For us, it's a very good surprise. Throughout the first part of my career, Australia, to me, was a competitor. So what was very interesting, that Australian producers did an extraordinary work to educate Australian consumers, turn them into wine lovers. And at one point, they started to import also wines and become interested in Italian wines, Spanish wines, in French wines, amongst which Burgundy was. So in the dossier, you have the press dossier, there's a graph that we wanted to include, which is very interesting. This is the table which is a change in the production of Burgundy wines over 54 years, since 1969 up to today. It is very telling. I urge you to look at it very closely. You learn so many things. We witness many things. We see, for example, from 1969 to 1982, we had major changes from one year to the next, and from 1982 to 2009, we saw a very steady growth in our production and conditions that were ideal, by the way. And then 2009 up until now, there are major ups and downs from one year to the next, and also more and more we have some. There's a standard deviation that is more and more significant. So we have effects with vintages that can be very small, like 2021, and other vintages can be like in 2023, because there we had a record that is a volume record. So we see also a change in the surface area on this graph. We see also the change in the whitening of Burgundy. We produce more and more whites, and the reds, proportionally in absolute value, also has dwindled a little bit. We see the upsurge also of the Crémant de Bourgogne, and there are a few other takeaways, and that's very interesting. There's not really a correlation, because the size of the vintage, and this is true between 2023, between the volume and the quality of the vintage, they are significant and generous. Vintages are not less tasty. So this is a change of paradigm here. Due to the warming of the climate, we will find a lot of more information in your press dossier. Now maybe, let me add one thing. Les Grands Jours de Bourgogne, next March, from the 18th to the 22nd of March, 2024, will be a year of Les Grands Jours de Bourgogne, where we invite for 1 full week journalists, opinion leaders, professionals to come meet us and get involved in Burgundy, from the Chablis to the Mâconnais, going through the Quatre Chardonnays, Côte de Nuit, Côte de Beaune. So you're all welcome, really, during this opportunity. So this is what we wanted to share with you this morning. Of course, we are available, all of us, to answer your questions, if you have any, of course. Yes, Clément. Wait for the mic, please. Microphone.
Il y a un micro qui arrive.
Do you have an estimate for the volumes for 2023? Do you also have an estimate for the breakdown between whites, reds, and the Crémant, please? Yes, we've got them. I don't have them in my mind, but we have this estimate, which is a result of the BIVB, the Burgundy Wine Board inquiry. We'll have the final results in December. For the time being, there's an inquiry which is very specific, very accurate. So the 1,900,000 that were announced are quite accurate, I would say. Philippe, do we have any details about how the reds and whites can be broken down? Philippe Jean-Pierre is in charge Market and Development Division, which is our board in intelligence. Yes. Look, we moved up to 63%. Regarding the estimate, right? At the Crémant, we are at 11 and 12, and the rest, it's the reds and the rosé. So there's a steady change moving upward, I would say.
J'ai dit que vous pouviez poser
I
des
said
questions
you could
à tout
ask
le monde, pas
questions,
seulement à moi.
not only to me, but to all those who have been speaking from the very beginning. Don't hesitate. Certainly, we are change a little bit the order. Even if you have questions, even for the associations of Sotheby's, don't hesitate. Feel free to ask your questions.
Ah, si, là-bas.
Oui, bonjour.
Bonjour.
Oui. Bonjour, it's Maya Plint, the UN Brief. We are a publication geared to diplomats in Geneva, but we have public in the US, UK, all over the globe. My question is related to the climate change. You mentioned that there was an impact in terms of the yields. Can you tell a little bit more? I don't know who would like to speak about it, because this is a question that interests us at the United Nations. Maybe talk a little bit about adaptation and what you see impacting production.
Well, we all remember 21 with the lowest number of barrels here. This is our fear. I mean, the climate deregulation, you know, I was talking about hail this year in Meursault and in the Mâconnais. It is the only thing that we cannot fight. We suffer of that. The big damages can be caused by hail and by drought. Our strongest fear, I can say, because Ludivine talked perfectly well about the resilience of the vines. The vines are adapting themselves extremely well. The only thing we are very afraid of is a drought, because any plant can live only with water. And this year, fortunately, the month of July has been quite humid, and this is why the vineyards didn't suffer and produced so well with a big crop on each vines. Is it okay?
Ça vous va? Ma réponse vous va? What about how do you adapt, how do you adjust? We see that there are many vineyards, and the Hospices de Beaune are becoming very much fully organic. That's a step towards protecting the environment. It has a global impact on the region, right? Champagne, the Champagne region with Leonardo DiCaprio, as you know, he's a famous comedian. He's also investing. So there's a lot of many investors actually are very interested in the weather conditions and in ecology, the environment. Let me tell you a few things about climatic change. I think there are not many professions, I'm doing it in French, there are not many professions that were so much impacted and are so aware of the climatic changes. And it's us really, when we see what has been going on in Bourgogne in the last 20 or 30 years, most of the changes that we've seen can be explained by climatic change. Paradoxically, partly we benefited from climate change. What made the success of the Burgundy wines in the last few years are two phenomena. First of all, is the change in consumer tastes who want more elegance and freshness, and also thanks to climatic change, and I say thanks, Burgundy wines have become more quaffable. And so these phenomena found themselves at a certain level. So we are seeing every day in our work the effects of climate change and effects of warming. We must be careful, each one in our role. You know, wine growers, winemakers, that's part of the DNA to adjust. They constantly adjust every day. It's raining, well, this morning I will not prune, I will go this afternoon because there's good weather this afternoon. It's part of our DNA. We do it at the scale of the estates. Let me give you an example in this that I can elaborate on later on. For example, the upsurge, the ramping up of winemaking of full grapes in the last few years for the past 20 years is about adapting to warming, to climate warming. We do it collectively in the Burgundy Wine Board, where we have multiple studies on the adaptation of the plant to climate change and adapting our winemaking techniques. What is important that it's not enough to be interested in the consequences of climate change, because when you work on the adjusting of the winemaking and of the plants, we work on the consequences. We need to look at the root causes as well. And here in Burgundy, we are taking a special direction that is very much structuring us. We want to have a we want to be carbon neutral by 2035. That's our aim. 2035. It's planned, called Objectif Climat, which involves the whole of Burgundy and will be done in different ways. We have looked at our carbon balance sheet. We identified what were the major levers to diminish the emissions of greenhouse effects. It's mainly the bottle of the bottles. It's essentially the transportation of wine, and in the transport of wine, that's the weight of the bottle that we need to bring down. It's about also transport within a region. So we'll be conducting a whole series of initiatives in order to bring down the greenhouse effects to a very low level. So because that level, there won't be any economic activity otherwise. And once we hit that level, well, by bringing down about by 60% the greenhouse effects, with the remaining 40%, we want to compensate them within our territories, that is in the vineyards, around the vineyards, and above the vineyards in the forests of our local territories by densifying things. So this is a very ambitious goal and a plan that we are launching, and we'll have to bring along about 4,500 wine growers, and mainly the young ones are very motivated. Hopefully I answer your question with this.
Avez-vous d'autres questions?
Do you have any other question?
Guillaume.
Yes, Guillaume, go ahead.
Micro.
Mike, please.
Mathilde, voilà.
Mathilde.
Pour Guillaume.
Hello, everyone. Guillaume Marois. Question for Mr. Koch. You spoke about investment projects, especially regarding the Hospices winery. Is it for next year, or what's the timetable? Look, it's still under discussion with Mrs. Griveau. At any rate, it is in my project. Look, I joined this position a month and a half ago, and we have this scheduled, and we'll try to bake this into our multi-annual equipment plan. You saw the large sums that we want to invest. Hopefully, we'll have good sales this afternoon. That way we can be off and running very quickly. We have some production constraints, and we're looking at this with Mrs. Griveau. As the Hospice Civil, could you claim for maybe subsidies to finance new wineries? Well, on the face of it, I would say no. You have for you the generosity of the buyers? Absolutely. This is why we need more than ever the buyers this afternoon. We are fortunate, and certainly we are a unique producer by being a hospital, after all. Any other question? One question again, and sorry. For the Wine Burgundy Board of François, we see that the rise of service areas planted has an impact on volumes. So can you tell us how this has been
Alors, on le voit
evolving
bien
since
sur le
last year?
graphique qu'on
You
vous
see it on the
qu'on vous a
table
donné.
that we
On est à
gave you.
32 000
We are
hectares.
32,000
32 000 hectares plantés.
hectares.
C'est vrai qu'il manque l'échelle en
Multiplied by
surface
2.5
sur
to
le
get the
graphique.
acres.
Et je
So
crois que la
I
surface
think
a
the
dû augmenter
surface area
d'environ,
increased by
300
about
hectares
300
depuis l'année dernière,
hectares
donc à peu
since
près
last year.
1%.
That's about
Bien
1%.
entendu,
Of
en
course,
Bourgogne,
in Burgundy,
il y a une grande partie de la Bourgogne,
there's a large part
toutes
of
les-
Burgundy
comment dire, les grands vignobles, la
where
Côte de Nuit, la Côte de
the
Beaune,
Côte
qui
de
sont
Nuit, Côte
déjà
de Beaune
plantés pratiquement
have
à
already
100%.
been
Mais
planted
encore,
at the
notamment
rate
dans
of
les appellations
100%.
régionales, et je
But
pense
in the
notamment
appellation
aux régions
régionale,
qui m'est
especially
chère,
a
qui
region
est,
which is
les
dear to my
Hautes-Côtes,
heart, the Haute
on
Côte,
a encore pas mal de
we have
possibilités
still
d'extension
many
du vignoble.
possibilities
On
for
peut continuer à
expanding
augmenter le
our
vignoble.
vineyard. We
On
can
le fait de
increase
façon
it.
extrêmement
We
raisonnable,
do it
de
in a
façon,
very reasonable way,
contrôlée chaque
in a
année, de manière à
controlled way
éviter
each year to
justement un
avoid
décrochement et un
precisely
dévissage brutal.
to have something too sharp, too brutal. Thank you very much. Just to supplement this, how far can you go
J'ai
for?
pas les chiffres,
I don't have the
on
figures
pourrait
in
monter à
mind, but
pratiquement
we could
50 000
move up
hectares.
to
On est à
about
32 000.
50,000
Donc
hectares.
c'est-
We
il y a
are
un
now
potentiel
at
très important.
32,000.
C'est
It's a
étonnant
major,
quand on lit ces
potentially
chiffres, parce que
surprising when you read
effectivement,
these figures
c'est pas dans l'esprit,
because it's not within the
on
spirit,
veut, encore une fois,
which is
on
ours.
veut,
Look,
piloter ça de
we
façon
want to
extrêmement
drive
prudente
this
et
in a very
raisonnable. On voit ce qui
cautious
s'est
and
passé
reasonable way.
dans d'autres
Look
régions
what happened
qui
in
ont
other
les
regions
yeux plus gros que le ventre,
that
si j'ose
really
dire. On y va de façon très raisonnable. Et ça concerne essentiellement les appellations
you know, it's
régionales.
mainly regarding
Chablis, par exemple, a beaucoup
appellation
progressé ces
régionale.
dernières années,
Chablis
mais
has made a lot of
arrive
progress in the last few
maintenant
years,
près
but it is reaching
son maximum.
its
Donc
maximum
ce n'est
now.
plus à Chablis que
So
ça va
it's no
progresser,
longer in
mais
Chablis
toutes les
that we'll be
appellations
seeing
régionales.
any rises. It's more among appellation régionale that you will see any rise taking place, if any.
Très bien.
Very well then.
Eh bien, écoutez,
Thank you.
je crois qu'on va vous donner
I
rendez-vous
think
pour la
we'll
vente cet
meet
après-midi.
for the auction sale this afternoon, Guillaume. Thank you so much. You know, we're sticking to our time. I learned something in my first meeting is that timing was of the essence today, you know. That's my takeaway. I thank you very much and have a beautiful 163rd wine auction and see you later. Thank you very much.